Hello everyone, hi, how are you guys doing today? Welcome back to another episode reaction to Doctor Who. That's right, my name's Matt. Hello, what's up? So, last time we got, boom, great episode. No notes. I do kind of want to apologize for the discussion of that episode kind of going harder into more real stuff rather than just having fun, but that's also kind of what the episode was. So I feel like that was fine for me to do so, but I do feel a little bit guilty about it. Regardless, I'm loving this new season of the show. I think it's incredible. Like, I'm at the point where I've heard people say that, like, maybe, like, the first two episodes aren't that great. And I can see a case for a Space Babies just kind of being kind of a whatever episode, because I kind of feel that way about it. But not Devil's Court. Devil's Court is incredible to me. I fucking love that episode. I personally love Devil's Court, like, a lot. But yeah, anyway, let us just watch this next episode. At the time I'm recording this, the season is almost over. I have not watched the episodes that are to come, obviously, but I think the season is almost over. I don't think it's over yet, but it is getting close to the end. So yeah, I'm just making my way halfway into the season, because I think it's like only like 8 episodes, right? I think it's only like 8 episodes. So I'm just getting to the halfway point as the season is about to wrap up. So that's kind of where I'm standing in time. I haven't heard jack shit about what's going on in the season, so I feel good about that. I've been dodging spoilers. I'm great. I'm just having fun. I love this. Let us begin. Patreon, check out the Patreon link in the description below, pop up on screen. You can support the channel and watch my reactions to the next 2 episodes already. So if you're watching this on YouTube, then my reaction to episode 6 should be up on Patreon already, as well as full-length reactions. I have full-length reactions to all of these episodes here. Yeah, let's just start. Doctor Who, Series 14, Episode 4. Let's go. That's weird. The title of the episode was right at the beginning. No credits. This episode might be so packed there's no intro. Well, we're in Welsh, so that's fun. I miss Torchwood.
Bless him. Mind you, Roger Ap William, that's a bad example of the Welsh. Terrifying.
Oh, yeah?
The most dangerous prime minister in history. He led the world to the brink of nuclear... Yikes, sorry, he was 2046. Sorry, spoilers. Forget I said anything.
No, tell me what happened.
I was like, another landmine? What are we doing?
I'm sorry, man. I am sorry.
I miss you. Rest in peace, Mad Jack. Bless him, eh? Looks like some sort of memorial.
Where is he? Yeah, he's fucking gone. Oh, what did we step into?
Hey, it's locked.
We immediately have a vibe of
Locked from the inside.
seriousness to this episode, I feel like. Is that the old fucking lady again?
We've seen my friend. He was here.
Trying
You
to
just
talk?
Wait there. Okay. Okay.
Is she getting closer? Or seems like the distance 73 yards. Maybe the distance is fixed somehow.
Are you a part of this? What have you done? Did you do this? Where's the doctor? Where is he? What have you done to him?
She keeps doing this motion. Me, voice, hear me. Okay, so she is moving, but the old lady's always at a set fixed distance from her. I'm trying to remember the motions. I wasn't paying attention to the previous one. So we have this, we have this, we have this. Yeah. Oh, another person?
Is that all you're wearing? Yeah, I got...
Wait, I think that is the old lady. Susan Twist or whatever.
Glenn Gatwick. I haven't met you before, have I?
I don't think so.
Have you? No, that was a different...
This is a...
This is gonna sound a bit mad, but she's following me.
What happens if you look at her and walk backwards?
Ask her if she knows the doctor. I'll try.
Try. And now what happens? Same motion. Is it the same motion? I think she's just repeating the same motion over and over again. What was that? She just kind of screamed and ran away. Fucking wild episode right at the gate. I'm hooked. This could be a doctorless episode. We used to have those back in the day. Same motion, like she's explaining something.
I don't suppose
I don't even know what year it is.
I haven't got any cash on me. Can I pay on my phone?
Can you what?
No, this is like the 80s or something.
The phone can transfer money from my account into...
Yes, you can pay with your phone.
Sorry.
Okay,
Quite
never
the dark
mind.
ages, young lady, despite what they say.
That woman out there, can you see her? Do you know who she is?
I've never seen her. Why? Who is she?
She's not with me. She's just following me.
If there's a woman following you, have you tried asking her why?
Be great if it was that easy. Okay, and now we
Send
got
her in for a pie and a pint.
to see this guy go and fucking scream and run away or whatever.
To coin a new word, in Latin it would be semper distans, always distant.
Look at the man, what happens?
Semper distance to you.
Oh my god, Josh is running. What'd she say to him?
I don't know.
Who is she?
I don't know.
That's wild. Initially, I thought that they would like join her and start doing the motions as well, but the fact that they look back at her and then they just scream and run.
A circle of cotton. Little toy things like charms and...
This reminds you of like Midnight.
It's what they call a fairy circle.
Okay, so
You
they.
can ask him about that.
Shut your face.
Okay, so.
Did you break it?
Oh god, we did.
Cliff tops are a boundary between the land and the sea. A liminal space neither here nor there where rules are suspended.
The messages, the little scrolls.
You read them?
Oh, just a couple.
You opened them and read them.
Whatever spell was cast in this circle is now broken.
What else did they say?
Well, one said, rest in peace. Rest in peace, Mad Jack.
Oh my god.
Say that to Mad Jack's face.
Why? Who was he?
He was insane.
And he's dead.
But now she's broken the circle.
Mad Jack is unbound.
Oh, don't.
He'd kill me. I'm the one he'd kill first, and you know why, don't you?
What the hell have you done? There's no home to go to, you idiot. Not anymore.
He drank in this pub.
This is a crazy horror movie I'm watching.
Hurry up, I got my hands full.
Okay. They were fucking with her, weren't they? I was thinking earlier that they were fucking with her.
People come from outside, they think we're all witches and druids. For God's sake, child, you walked into a piece of string.
And now, following the beats of horror movies, now that we've done the goof, we have to do the real shit next. Like when they got so intense and like the camera was so in that lady's face and they were like so quickly going through the beats, I was like, this is like too much.
To Josh, I said, we haven't seen you. He said, I'm never coming back. I said, why? And he said, ask her. So I'm asking you, why? I made it very clear to Josh, you will be packing and going.
Look, maybe I should just go home. I haven't even known you for that long anyway, but, you know, maybe this is what you do. I would love to see you again. God, I'd just absolutely love it. Bye-bye.
Okay.
I'm going now. Okay?
What is this gonna look like? Show me outside. Okay. So, okay. I was thinking that it would be like a superimposed image that just keep moving.
There she is. Oh, that's what men do. They go into their sheds and they potter. And your intergalactic nutcase is doing it on a cosmic scale. He must be.
Oh man.
If I can approach her, then I'll phone you.
I do like that mom is in. She's locked in.
Hi.
Then I can talk to her.
This is very dangerous though.
No, but I've told you, everyone she talks to, they just run away.
This is very
Welsh
dangerous.
people. Trust me, darling. It's a plan.
I'm afraid of what might happen to mother.
A nice time.
That old lady! We have a bunch of old creepy old ladies in this fucking season. There's like 3 of them now.
Nothing to do with me. Mum, what does she look like?
She looks like what she looks like.
That sounds creepy.
She looks like what she is.
Mum, what's she saying? Mum, whatever she's saying, just don't. No, Mum! Mum, don't listen to her! Please don't do this to me, Mum! Mum, don't do this to me, Mum! Mum!
It's a crazy fucking episode. Oh. That is an expression of disdain. Oh, it's fucked up. She looks like what she looks like. She looks like what she is.
She ran away? What did you say to her?
Well, it wasn't me, it was the woman! I would keep calling 100 times a day, and you've got to come home. And if you do come home, I'll make that shepherd's pie, yeah? Pretend that... Hang on.
She came back and changed the locks. They're all afraid and angry at Ruby for some reason.
I won't ask you again, Ruby. Please stop calling or go away.
I'm your daughter.
Well, except you're not. Even your real mother didn't want you.
What the fuck? But I don't know where the fuck this episode goes. It's just like this, like creepy. Caitlin was doing.
Yes.
That was holy fucking shit. I wasn't expecting that. Caitlin restored jump scare. Like that was such a visceral reaction. I just yelled her whole name.
And you work with the doctor?
With him, despite him, against him sometimes, and I adore him. But I wish you'd got in touch with us sooner. We thought the doctor was silent.
Oh, I know. I keep wondering how the world survives without him.
Well, that's classified. I think this timeline might be suspended along your event. I'm glad we found you.
Oh, so am I. It's like they see her, but they don't notice her.
Unless you point her out.
73 yards. I have measured it 100 times. I've measured it 1,000 times. It's 73 yards.
But if you went on a plane?
Or a boat. Yeah, no, I know. But I don't. I keep thinking, if I cut her off, I might die. Or she might die. I don't know, does that sound mad?
Interesting.
Sounds wise.
I'm thinking that this is not midnight. This is turn left now.
I hope you don't mind. I didn't come alone.
Yeah, I guessed as much. But that's scary though. We're gonna have a bunch of soldiers look at her and then like turn around and shoot her.
The image we can get.
Oh, I know. I bought the most expensive camera and I still couldn't zoom in on her face. If you talk to her, I don't know, she does something.
My staff have full psychic training. We have telepathic dampeners, mesmeric shields.
Don't let Kate go herself. No. Turn back to look at Ruby.
No, Kate. No, Kate, what's she saying?
Oh, she can hear her now. Oh god, they got her.
Disengage.
Kate, no, Kate, you can't leave. Kate! Kate, please don't go, Kate!
This is like, I don't know, this is fucking Bird Box. I don't know what I'm watching.
But I say, let's go away. Let's go to New York.
We're getting at times. Kate said we might have to go away with your timeline or whatever the fuck they said. This might be turn left. And now I'm cooking like the most insane batshit theories in my mind.
You're not really listening, like you're drifting off, thinking of something else. Well, like now, to be honest.
I have so many questions, but it's pointless to ask them.
Thank you. And what's your take on this, Roger Williams?
Well, no public school for me. I've done hard work.
Wait.
I was a jack of all trades. Mad Jack, they used to call me.
Mad Jack.
Roger Williams. That's a bad example of the Welsh. Terrifying. The most dangerous prime minister in history.
Yeah, like 2042 or whatever. Almost caused, like, destroy the world, whatever. He did say
Yeah,
that.
but you were right. It was never gonna work. I'm gonna save the world.
Okay.
Mwah.
This is... I'm following whatever Kate said. I think this is gonna be like a weird alternate timeline. This is like a turn left shit. She's just gonna come in, pull out a gun, and shoot him. She's not gonna do that, but it would be fucking fun if she did.
I would like to offer my services. I thought I'd volunteer.
Okay, infiltrating as an agent.
I want to help the cause. I have £1,000 in my savings, which I can donate right now. I'll do leaflets, answering the phones. Just tell me what to do and I'll do anything.
I am a son of Wales, and the Welsh know what it's like to be oppressed, and that has taught me to say no more.
I want Great Britain to say no more. So yes, I have pledged to defend our borders and set us up on high as one of the greatest nations in the world.
But we're members of NATO.
When did NATO ever, fire a nuclear missile?
Are you saying that you actually want to fire a nuclear missile?
We'll cut that bit out, right?
This episode is some of the wildest shit I've ever seen. Every like 10 minutes, we're in a completely different
Are
story.
you with us? Tell me, what about her girl over there? Is she one of ours?
Marty Bridges.
Okay.
Marty.
I
Yeah,
declare that Roger Ap Gwilliam is duly elected as Member of Parliament for the constituency.
Oh boy. I hate how he reminds me of my president. He raped her.
Between you and me, sometimes, I don't know, I think he gives me the shivers. Oh, he is a monster.
Yes, thank you.
We're here to
I really want her to
He
just
still
like
says hello to every single person.
shut your fucking face. I would love it if she just fucking pull out a gun and shoot him.
You, Marty. Roger said there's room for you at the party Saturday night. He asked for you by name. They're saying it's going to be wild. Now, we need to help branding on the grandstand.
The way this episode is touching every uncomfortable nerve that they could touch.
Saturday is when control transfers. We're purchasing the nuclear arsenal from Pakistan. And on Saturday, Roger will declare us independent from NATO.
And then on Sunday, he's just fucking...
Roger Ap Gwilliam gets the codes.
Yeah. Girl, we need to, like, move.
He'll launch.
Don't be stupid, Marty.
I'm sorry it took so long, because I think I'll only get one chance, and I had to make sure I was right. But I wish I could have helped you. I'm so sorry.
I really hope that she has a fucking gun in her purse and just fucking goes and shoots him.
Ruby, I said keep off the grass.
The amount of tension I'm feeling.
Hey, there are no unofficial photos, thank you. 55 yards. Put that down! Ruby, just stop.
Oh, the lady's gonna show up right next to him. That's how she's gonna get him. They might shoot her. Yeah.
Ask you to put that device down immediately. Final warning. Stay where you are.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do.
Okay. Yes. And now, scream and run. And now what?
15 minutes later, Roger
Resigns.
William resigned from the office of Prime Minister.
Okay. Ask her. But is this the way the timeline was supposed to go? That is the question.
Is that it? Hey, is that what you were for? Can you leave me alone?
Ah! I'm like fighting for my life here.
I'm sorry, Ruby. I can't drive any closer.
What is... Okay, we're here. We're here. What the fuck is happening?
Why do people put flowers here?
I don't think they know. She must be gone, my mother.
Yeah, you never talked again, I guess.
And I didn't find my birth mother.
This is...
It never snowed again. But I keep thinking, I know why. The woman. And I've been thinking about it my whole life. Why is she here? And I think at the end, I have hope. Because that's very you, isn't it, my old friend? I dare to hope.
I've set the light, Ruby.
Yeah, we need to see her
If you
die.
wake up
That's
in
the
the
only
night,
way that this
say
can
light.
happen.
Anything else you need?
I could make it snow once upon a time.
If you need me,
I think I
I'm
recognize
just
this
down the
song.
hall.
I think this is her theme
So
song.
you
or
won't be on
something.
your own.
Don't worry. Everyone has abandoned me my whole life, but I haven't been alone for 65 years.
Night then, Ruby.
She's right there. I'm like afraid of looking at the camera.
I was sorry it took so long. And I tried so hard. What else could I do? It took all these years.
That was her.
These long years. And look at me. I was
Talking
so
to
young.
herself. But like,
Ruby.
oh,
I've been to Wales 3 times now. I went to see Shy Girl in Cardiff.
Yeah.
Who's she?
Who?
What, over there?
Where?
There was a woman.
don't step.
Well, she's
don't
not there
step.
anymore. All right, Ruby. All right.
Oh, no, don't step.
That's it. Oh my.
What a beautiful thing. Anna's so delicate. Charms and spells and hopes and dreams. Here at the end of the land. Let them rest in peace. Like your mysterious woman.
Oh, she was there.
We are here. So, what was the third time that you've been to Wales? You said you've been 3 times? What was the other one?
Oh, no, I don't know. When was it? I can't think. I suppose.
It never happened.
Now.
That was the wildest fucking things I've ever seen in my entire goddamn life. Fucking love that episode. I do. I really fucking do. Whew. I don't know how y'all felt when you watched that episode for the first time, but I hope that you can understand how I feel after watching that episode for the first time, which is overwhelmed. Not overwhelmed, but in a emotionally overwhelmed, you know, not by information, but rather by emotion. It felt like a lot happened, and it did, because a lot did happen, and then it all wrapped itself nicely, tidy, and it made me feel all kinds of uncomfortable and also good. I like how the episode immediately set that tone right out the gate without having to do anything. Because the episode started and credits just fucking said, title of the episode, by Russell T Davies, Shurigawa, Millie Gibson. Quietly, casually dropping that on you. And that doesn't say anything, but what it does tell me is a couple things. First is that this episode is probably pretty loaded, because if we're not gonna have an intro, we need every second we can use, which tells me that a lot is gonna happen this episode, and also tells me that this episode is setting a tone. That's important, right? I think that tone is something important when it comes to when making an episode or any really piece of media that you're trying to show to people. Like, setting a tone is important, and this episode set its tone right out the gate. It did feel like we had kind of a grayscale filter. There was an uneasiness that happened throughout the episode. And right at the beginning, I immediately felt at unease. I was like, I don't know what's happening. This is weird. And like, that started from just not showing me the intro. I don't know if we've ever had an episode that didn't have the intro. Maybe we have and I just forgot about it. But like, I'm thinking about it and I don't think I can remember any instance of the show just not having the intro. We've had special intros before, but straight up not having it, that's a choice. And yeah, they did need extra time, but also it was a deliberate choice that actually helped set the tone. Okay, what happened this episode? What didn't happen this episode? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. This was a very turn left episode. That's what it was. It was turn left. It started off as like weirdly midnight and then turned into turn left. And it was like, okay, this is interesting because I think that in some ways this is better than turn left, honestly, which is a great episode. because Turn Left in season 4, and I'm sorry I'm comparing to another episode immediately, but like it's very clearly supposed to be very similar to that episode. I think it's impossible not to think about it. But Turn Left in series 4 of the show was an episode where Donna lived an alternate timeline because a bug crawled on her back and forced her to like live it, but also it kind of happened. And in that weird timeline, we got to see what it would be like in a world where the doctor wasn't there to save it. Because Donna didn't save the doctor went too far, he died, and then the world got fucked. However, the point of Turn Left was like seeing all this tragedy happen and what would it be like if the doctor wasn't there, but also telling you like it was a setup for what was to come, which is this incredible finale with like the Stolen Earth and what's the name, Journey Sam. Great series 4 finale is great, but it was supposed to set you up for that, especially like mentioning Torchwood and Rose and all that. It's like it all comes together, and it does at the finale. So very good for that. This episode, though, is a lot more self-contained, and it makes a lot more sense just by itself. And what I mean by that is that this episode, we follow Ruby throughout the entire episode. It's just a Ruby episode. Again, it is reminiscent to an episode like Turn Left because we don't get to have the doctor, you know? And this is something that the RTDR of the show did a lot, where there was an episode where we didn't have the doctor or we didn't have the companion, and it was just like, yeah, we give the actor a break, or something like they can be filming something else while we do this. It's fun. I think it's fun. But the story told in this episode is a lot more, I guess, a lot less fan servicey and a lot less setting up something to come for the epic finale or whatever. And it is more about Ruby as a character. This episode showed a lot of Ruby because it was the only character we followed the entire time. Ruby gets to live a life where the doctor just disappears, just vanishes. And luckily for her, she's in the same time. She's still in 2024. So she just gets to live her normal life. Except that it's not. You know, she loses contact with her mom because unfortunately her mom did go to meet the old version of herself. Which, I don't know why. It's such a horror thing, and that's something that this episode did very well. They really went hard into the horror elements of this episode. It's like we got like a weird thing. This is why it reminded me of Midnight at first, because it was like a weird thing where, okay, there's a creepy old lady that's always there, and she's doing the same gestures, the same movements. You can't ever get near her. She's always at the same distance. If anyone gets close to her and asks her anything, they look at Ruby. You don't get to hear what anyone says, what the old lady says, or what they say. They look at Ruby, they scream, and they run away as hard as they can. And not just that, but the way that they interact with Ruby is it is something of disdain, of hatred. And it's like, why does that happen? And I don't know if we have an answer to that. Maybe there is an answer to that. Maybe I need to like delve deeper into this episode in order to figure that out. And I might do that before I post the video. I don't know. I'm still like processing this episode emotionally because this episode was very emotionally charged. So we get to see Ruby essentially, even though she's in her time and she can live her life is kind of ruined by her mom abandoning her. And not just that, because even her mom says, like, I'm not really your mom. Like, even your real mom didn't want you, which is such a fucked up thing to say. We get to see how Ruby, she's completely distant, you know, the entire time, where we get to see time skip. And that's when I started to feel this feeling of dread this episode. It was at the bar at Wells, or the inn in Wells. Where in that inn, there was like a moment where Ruby's sitting in like a chair near the TARDIS, and then she's back at the inn and she's just staring out the window. And then the lady from the inn comes and talks to her. And that was the moment I started to feel dread, because I just felt like time was moving too fast. And I'm pretty sure that was deliberate, because that's something that happened throughout the episode. That's when time started to accelerate. It was like, oh, we just jumped a full day or 2 days or whoever knows what amount of time that was. And when that happened, I was like, oh fuck. Because like you do have this like feeling whenever you jump into an episode like this or anything with Doctor Who, where you feel like, oh, the doctor's gonna like fix everything, or like the companion in question in duty time is gonna come in and solve a puzzle, and they're gonna fix everything. And that can still happen, but the moment that time starts moving, you think, oh, this is not gonna be resolved in an evening. This is gonna take some time. And I don't know how much time that's gonna be, but in a sci-fi show with like time travel and alternate universes and shit, it could be any amount of time. And that's what the episode was. It was literally her entire life. And like whenever I started to have that feeling, and that's why like whenever you jump to her being an old lady, being 40 years later, I had a reaction to it. I clearly did, but I also wasn't super surprised. I wasn't surprised at that. I was like, yeah, we need to see her die. We need to go through her entire life. That's gonna be what we're gonna do this episode. The thing about her life is that it's going, oh God. Okay, so we get to see her entire life, and the reason why it's emotionally charged is because we get to see how she is unable to maintain relationships because she is completely gone. She's just completely thinking about something completely different. So she's unable to maintain relationships. She's unable to move. And she feels, she has this like weird feeling that if she goes away from it, like she might die, or the old lady might die. And she's like, I don't really want to leave like too far away from her. She has this like weird feeling of like, you know, like she's always around, she's always there, and you know, I'm just gonna live my life. And every time that she's doing anything, she's just kind of thinking about that. She's just completely gone and thinking about this like old version of herself that's just there. Except she doesn't really know that specifically, but she kind of does have this feeling. And that's interesting because there is a weird feeling that connects the two of them. It seems like, you know, even at the end when young Ruby has the feeling when the doctor says like, oh, you said you came here 3 times. What was the 3rd time? And Ruby was like, huh, yeah, I guess now. And it's like, yeah, it's now. Because that's when the old lady showed up. And that's really interesting to me. Because like, my brain is like racing to try and think about like the specifics of how this happened. But at the same time, I don't think it really fully matters. Because I think that what really matters this episode is we get to see Ruby's life. And it's a fucked up life, but it is a life that she lived. And that doesn't mean that it didn't happen, because it happened for us, the audience. And this is a show, this is a piece of fiction. What matters is what it presents to us, not so much the canonical life of the character. But we get to see Ruby's like abandonment, where she never got the answer she wanted. People around her life always left her. Like when she's an old lady and she's in the bed, she does mention that for a second. She was like, oh yeah, like everyone always left me, but I've never been alone for the past 65 years. It's like the only person she ever had was herself. This old version of herself who's just far away. And she never knows what the deal with that is, but that's the only person who's ever around. Everyone else leaves. And that is sad. It's really sad. And that's also why, like, we had a whole arc earlier. She stopped the end of the world because, like, we have the rise of an incredibly psychopathic, fucked up rapist politician who looks and acts exactly like Javier Milei. And Ruby, based on, like, a tiny amount of clues, you know, like this, like very tiny little amount of stuff that happened. She is able to pierce together what the doctor said right before he disappeared. And then she is able to use that in order to stop this whole situation from happening from in like the most bizarre way. And she's like completely fearless as she does it, which is, I'm not sure if that is a sign of Ruby's character, which I think it is, but also in this instance, she might feel like this like supernatural feeling of like, I'm gonna be okay because my life is connected to that old lady's life, and I feel weirdly like I'm fine and I have to do this. So she does it, and this weird politician gets freaked the fuck out, runs away, resigns, and it's like hides in his fucking house. And they ask him what the fuck has happened, and he's like, ask her. And it's like, okay, weird. But yeah, that's exactly what happened. And it's like, that maybe was a weird bit for the story, but I think it worked because it showed us that Ruby, if left alone, which she is, she would absolutely dedicate herself to this like mission. She like went in, infiltrated, her entire life became this. She gave away all of her savings. She was like, I'm gonna do this every second of my life. Like, I'm fully committing to this plan. She's like, yeah, I'm with you. She's just completely infiltrating into this persona. And then when she realizes it's like, oh, this is my final chance to do it, I'm gonna fucking do it. So she goes and does it and saves the world. Perfect. Thing is, that's sad. It is because it is not a triumphant like, oh my god, we saved the world, because yes, it is, but more importantly, what we're seeing is someone who has lost every person in her life and is unable to form any new connections. And what happens is that she sees something that she can put her mind to, and she's like, fuck it, I'm throwing my whole life into that. That is my only goal now, because she doesn't have anything else. And that is an incredibly sad thing to do. That is an incredible sad thing to watch. So whenever this is happening, and like that's something that's very easy to see, because like when you're watching those scenes when Ruby is infiltrating and she's pretending to be part of the like political party or whatever, you get to see how dead she is in her eyes. Like, she's not like depressed dead, but she's like, I don't have any emotion in my eyes. I'm just here and I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. And then when she finally does it, she feels like so joyful. She's like, fuck yeah, I did it, I saved the world. But then what, right? And it's like we get a time skip, and then we get to see how it doesn't seem like she got a family. It doesn't seem like she got really no one. And it's like, yeah, because she wasted, I don't know how much of her life just running and then hiding and then just pretending, being a fake person, and then just for the sake of this plan, and then she accomplishes it. And I don't know how old she was, but maybe like most of her like life was gone at that point, you know, not like most of her life literally, but her young life, like the moments of your life where you actually do form connections, meet people, and like that's when you build something for yourself later on in life. She missed that because she was on a mission, so she didn't have that, and that's sad. Ruby lived a very sad life this episode, and it was fucked up to see. And then the emotional crescendo of it all was at the very end when she just fucking dies, realizing that she herself was the old lady all along. And all she was doing is that she was slowly traveling backwards. That's what it was. She was traveling backwards. I just realized that. Because I was thinking about like, oh, there's like weird alternate timelines and how does one affect the other? And it's like, well, what happened is that the reason why the old lady was in the new Ruby timeline is because, I don't know if I can explain myself correctly, but what happened is that we have the original timeline, imagine it's like right here, and then it creates the second timeline where the doctor disappears, and then Ruby lives this entire timeline, but there's always an old lady here just looking at her, but the old lady appears after the doctor has stepped on the circle. I don't think she appears before, she appears after. And what happens is that when Ruby gets to the end of her life in this timeline, the old lady finally fuses with her, and the old lady rewinds and goes backwards to this point in order to prevent it from happening. And then she eventually, traveling backwards, does get to this point, says don't step, gets that message imprinted in Ruby so she can stop the doctor, and then finally in this timeline it is prevented, and then we proceed as normal. And the old lady is gone in this new timeline because she traveled all the way in order to get before that happened. But that's why this Ruby saw her, because in this Ruby timeline, she was traveling backwards because she was part of that timeline. The old lady was part of timeline 2, and she was traveling backwards, and when she finally got there, then she was gone from timeline 1 because all she needed to do was get to the initial point in order to prevent it, and then she doesn't exist anymore. There you go. Close loop. Oh my fucking god. I love time travel in stories. I really do. I think time travel is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, concepts that you can throw into a story. Not necessarily traveling to a different time, but just anything you can do with time shenanigans. And this episode was just a great execution of that. Because it's not just because the time travel doesn't really come into until the very end, where it's weirdly enough time travel in a sense of Ruby travel backwards in a rewind sense, where it took. Did she live through that entire time a second life? That's even crazier. She did say, "I'm sorry it took so long." So what might have happened is that Ruby lived a second life for like whatever the amount of time was. It was like another like 55 years, 60 years, whatever amount. Like it seems like she just maybe she was consciously living time at a normal time pace, 1 minute to 1 minute, and going backwards that way. So maybe we have a fucked up version of Ruby that lived for like 60 years just doing this and saying, don't step, don't step, don't step, don't step. Maybe that's not what happened. In fact, I don't think that that's what happened. And it kind of doesn't matter if that's what happened. But I think that what happened was that at any given moment that Ruby lived, we had that 3-second loop of that message of don't step traveling backwards. I'm getting distracted too much into like specifics with this. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't. What matters is the episode itself and what we saw Ruby do and what we see her life was. And just the emotional feeling of it. Like there was so much like dread that I felt. I felt panic. I felt this like thrilling sensation of like, I don't know what the fuck is happening. There's this like horror elements, and then it became this like real fucked up like, all right, this woman just got raped. And I hate that I saw that. And I hate that the moment I saw them, I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that he asked her name. And then the next time we see her, she's just sitting in a corner, and I'm like, he raped her. Like, that's 100% what happened. And then that's exactly what happened. And then they kept bringing it up, and I was like, God, I really wish Ruby had just pulled out a gun and shoot him. I really wish she had just done that. I feel like that probably would have been more satisfactory. But we needed to hit the emotional crescendo of her living her whole life. And I do like that Ruby apologized to that lady, Marty. I do like that Ruby apologized. She was like, I'm sorry. Like, I only had one shot. I only had one chance. And I had to make sure that it was the right moment, but this is my last shot, so I have to take it now. I'm sorry I didn't do it before. It was like this like moment of acknowledgement of like, I realized that he is an abuser and I realized what he did to you, but I'm sorry that I didn't act before. I'm really sorry. I'm trying to stop the world from ending, but I only had one chance, and like I was waiting for the right moment, and I guess this is the only chance I get. She was waiting for her right opportunity and didn't come until that very moment, which I guess was the right opportunity. She was like at a big distance on this field that was like enough for him to just freak out. So yeah, it was nice that she utilized that specific like measurement that she measured. We got to see Kate Living Stewart this episode, and then she left. That's fun. I do like that. Like, I do like utilizing a character that's like part of the like, she's part of the world. Kate Lover Stewart is great. I love Kate. Whenever she showed up, I popped up for a second because I love Kate Lover Stewart. She's great. But like, I like that she wasn't a big part of the episode. I do like that because there is an element that happens a lot with, I think, some of the previous eras of the show where every time you see Kate, it's like, well, this is a big Kate episode, you know, like this is like, we're gonna deal with Unit. There's gonna be a lot of Unit. There's gonna be a lot of like recurring like characters. Like we got to see Kate, and it's like the giggle, and it's this like big thing. We get to see Kate before that, and it's Power of the Doctor, and Peter Davison is here, Sylvester McCoy is here, Ace and Tegan, and it's like any time that one of these characters shows up, it is this feeling of like, you know, like, oh, this is like a big epic event, all-star cast, getting all the warriors in. It's paying homage to the show itself. This episode, fuck that. It's like Kate showed up, and the only reason why she showed up was in order to tell you even Kate fell to this like whatever was happening and ran away. That's the only reason why that happened. Because Kate is someone that you trust. Kate is someone that you know, and you know is prepared, and even she couldn't do it. So it's just to like raise the stakes a little bit in order to make Ruby feel even more alienated. More importantly, actually, because I think that I think something that we see in this episode that it's really comes through is Ruby's loneliness, alienation, and abandonment, really, because everyone left her. And that's interesting because that is something about Ruby's character that is always there. Part of her character, because her entire deal is that she was abandoned when she was a baby and she wants to know who her birth mother is. And then this entire episode is just her getting abandoned over and over and over again by everybody. And she doesn't get an answer why. It just happens. And it happens in the most upsetting way too. It's like someone goes to talk to that person, they look at you, they scream and run away from you. And if you are to talk to them, they tell you, fuck you, leave me alone. And it's crazy. It's like rejection sensitive dysphoria, the episode. That's what that is. You know what that is. I know what that is. But like, yeah, it's like that. It's like she feels like she's rejected always, and she is. But it's like, yeah, an episode where she is rejected all the time for some reason that we don't get to see why. And I suppose this is where the big question for this episode comes in, where I don't know, and I don't know if it's explained or if it makes any goddamn sense, or if I should be asking this question, because maybe I shouldn't, maybe it doesn't matter. Why do they get afraid? Why do they get angry? Why do they run away? All I can think about is that, like, it's like on a kind of weirdly emotional sense, they feel what the older Ruby feels. They represent the feeling that the older Ruby knows to be true, which is older Ruby knows that she's abandoned and she's going to be abandoned because everyone always abandoned her. So when they approach older Ruby, they feel that feeling of like, I have to abandon younger Ruby. Like, I have to. Because like that's what's weird about it. Because like almost in like a weird like Bird Box thing, every time that this happened, everyone just fully did exactly the same thing. Slowly turn around, scream, run away. And then when asked about why, they go ask her. It's like you never get an answer why. You never get a reason. It just happens. And that's what's wild to me about this. And that's why it's so good at like this like horror element. I really like it. I really do. I don't need an answer. I don't know if there is an answer and I'm just too stupid and you flew right past me. I don't need an answer. And then the episode was great without it. I love it. That said though, I think I want to go and rewatch this. Sorry it took so long and I tried so hard. What else could I do? It took all these years. All these long years. And look at me, I was so young. Yeah. What's up with the Mad Jack thing is what I'm wondering. Because the beginning of the episode was so long ago, I'm like, little messages. I miss you. Rest in peace, Mad Jack. What I'm thinking is, why did fucking whatever, the asshole prime minister say that like, oh, they call me Mad Jack or whatever he said. I was a jack of all trades. Mad Jack they used to call me. That's interesting. Why? Like, why does the Mad Jack thing matters? I suppose that is the loose end that I'm not fully connecting here. And I don't know if I'm just stupid or if there's something else. Because we have the note that says, rest in peace, Mad Jack. Then the asshole prime minister says like, oh, they call me Mad Jack. And then Ruby makes a connection of like, I need to focus on this guy. But like, the doctor didn't say like, oh, this guy was Mad Jack. This guy, he says the actual name of the dude. The Mad Jack nickname doesn't fully matter, and I'm not sure why there is a connection. Maybe it's just a coincidence. We have a lot of those this season, like early on. The doctor points it out. It's like, oh, it's always babies with you. There's all these coincidences. So maybe there is a Mad Jack coincidence. Or maybe we have a bad wolf situation. However, this is the only instance where it has popped up. I think maybe that's on me. So that's one part that I was confused about a little bit. I was like, what is the deal with Mad Jack? Who is Mad Jack? Why does it matter? Like, why does he rest in peace? Why is it the asshole prime minister? Who knows? Who knows anything? I presume she must be gone, my mother. I didn't find my bad mother. It never snowed again. But I keep thinking I know why. The woman. And I've been thinking about it my whole life. I do like this moment. I think at the end I have hope. Because that's very you, isn't it, my old friend? I dare to hope. I do love that. That's like such a... I don't know why that strikes me as like the most Russell T Davies thing that was ever written. You know, I dare to hope. It's such a like, in the face of all the like horrible, most fucked up things you've ever seen, just this entirety of the sad life, clinging on to this idea of hope is just, I don't know why it's like, I think that was probably the most emotional moment of the episode for me. It was like when I heard that, say that is very like you, isn't it, old friend? I dare to hope. Like the way she said that, the delivery of that actress, is very good. I really enjoyed that. It kind of got to me. This episode is wild in like the best possible sense. Like it's odd because like we just had a Stephen Moffat episode last episode, and I don't want to compare writers, but I'm just gonna do it for now in a second. So I'm sorry about that. But last week we had a Moffat episode, and that was great. Actually, I really enjoyed Boom. But I feel like Moffat episodes are more about giving you a specific explanation and answer, and it is something that makes sense. I feel like Russell T Davies stories usually focus more about the emotional core in them. And I feel like this episode, like comparing one episode to the other, it's like, oh yeah, Boom was more technical. It felt like I understood exactly what was happening. This episode, I feel like I wasn't fully following and I don't have all the answers, and it honestly doesn't fucking matter because the entire episode comes down to that moment where Ruby's just an old lady looking at the TARDIS and being like, I dare to hope. Right? Like that's what the episode is to me. Right? Like it is not around about capitalism and war. It's just a like very human moment coming from this character, and that just really got to me. And that's why I really love this fucking episode. And that's not to say it doesn't make sense, because it does. It's just that is secondary to this. So that's why I really love this fucking episode. I do. I think this might be the best episode of the ones we've seen so far. And it's like very specific, right? Like, because like, this is wild to me. Like, this is an episode in the same season as fucking Space Babies. This was 2 weeks after Space Babies. Like, because Space Babies aired at the same time as Devil's Court, I think. And looking back at it, I think that it was because Space Babies was supposed to be the first episode, but maybe when they were going to release them, some higher up said, I don't know if that is the best premiere for a show, so they were like, let's release the second episode as well, which is a lot better. The difference between these 4 episodes is fucking wild to me. Like, Space Babies is the stupidest fucking goofiest episode, and it's like, it's fine, it's lighthearted, I don't mind it, but it's very, like, Doctor Who is a show for all ages, and that episode felt like more catered toward a younger audience. And it was a lot more simple and lighthearted. The second episode, Devil's Court, it was still like having a lot of fun, but it was also like going on a dark place. So it was like a weird mix of the two, and it was a little bit uncomfortable for that, but it was still really fun. The end, the song at the end, the musical, it was like, oh yeah, we're expressing all of this. This is all very vibrant, and we're finally like we're super leaning into music and the joy of it, right? And how that is something that's very human. Great. But it's still like something that's really fun. We have Boom, which is just a capitalist dystopia. Everything fucking sucks and people fucking die. We're holding the corpses of these people that are just compacted into this tiny little tubes that you can send to your loved ones, just because it's like, well, it was more expensive to keep you alive than to just fucking end you right here. And then this episode is just like the most like, okay, we're just gonna watch the entire life of this person just go and waste away in the most fucked up way possible. And that's just gonna be the episode. And it's like, I feel emotionally drained and spent after that. And I have this like weird feeling of like, dude, I'm halfway through the season. Like it felt like, again, this was like turn left levels, but even harder, because this had more of an emotional baggage to it, I feel like. And I'm like, that's episode 4. Like I feel like we do need to go back to something a little bit more fun, maybe, because like I feel like I need that in my life right now, because this was a lot. Oh man, why is Doctor Who so fucking good? Like that's something that like I sometimes I watch an episode of Doctor Who. Sometimes I watch like I don't fucking know, or from 55, and I would just be like, okay. I would just be like, all right, that was an episode that happened. But then I'll watch an episode like this one, and I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna be like, this is it. This is why I fucking love the show. This is why like I never stopped. Because like this is my favorite thing about Doctor Who. And I love, honestly, like any show that is able to do this is a show that I love. I'm a JoJo fan. I don't know if you can tell based on the amount of JoJo merch in the background there. I got that JoJo art book like earlier today, by the way. I'm very happy with it. But JoJo is a show that changes and evolves over time. Doctor Who is a show that changes and evolves over time, but also changes every episode. And that's something I love about it. Because Doctor Who is it's just like setting anywhere, theme, anything, characters, anyone, when, anytime. Doctor Who is able to just be anything it wants to be. And that means that the writers have a lot of freedom to come up with some very interesting stories and very interesting concepts. And that also means that we're going to get an episode every now and then that's just going to be like, oh, we're just running around and there's aliens and stuff. And it's like, well, we leave. Okay, that can happen. And that can just be fun. But with a show with this amount of freedom, you really can do anything. And I feel like this episode, 73 Yards, is exactly that. It is an episode where we just go into an alternate timeline. We follow a companion. The Doctor's not even here. Her life is just depressing as hell. She's abandoned. She's left alone. Nobody has her back. She goes and saves the world. Nobody even knows that she did. We get to see all the like fucked up life that she has and her fucked up interactions with people around her. And then she just lives until old age and dies sad and alone in a bed. And then she weirdly teleports, time travels backwards until the moment where her life went to shed at the beginning of the episode, and it doesn't happen. And then there you go. This episode is Steins Gate 0. For those of you who know Steins Gate, okay, if you don't know Steins Gate, go and watch Steins Gate. Go watch the English dub of Steins Gate. I really enjoy the English dub. I think it actually enhances the story in a lot of ways. Steins Gate is probably my favorite piece of like time travel fiction, and I love Steins Gate. Doctor Who is I love Doctor Who more than I love Steins Gate. I love Doctor Who, but Doctor Who is like, it can be any story. Steins Gate is like this like very specific story. It's 26 episodes or like 24, something like that. You should go and watch it. Steins Gate is so fucking good. Steins Gate 0 is a different show that is based on a thing that happens in normal Steins Gate. So you should watch normal Steins Gate, actually. Do that. Go watch the Steins Gate English dub. That is my recommendation for you today. Okay, I'm gonna go. I've been talking for like 50 minutes, and it's just gushing about this episode being so fucking good. Okay, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. Bye. Hi, hello. I am recording an extra bit here at 4 in the morning just as I finish editing this video, because I have more thoughts to add on top of what we just watched with this episode of Doctor Who. I basically just rewatched the episode because I just edited it, and during editing it's almost like rewatching it because I'm going through it again. And I feel like this is an episode that actually does benefit from a rewatch. Because I feel like a lot of things become more clear the moment that you start applying this idea of the old lady is Ruby, and also when you apply like a thematic filter to it. So what I mean by that is, okay, if you're rewatching this episode, which you honestly maybe kind of are if you're watching a reaction for it, but if you just go and rewatch the episode by itself, I think it becomes incredibly obvious how much everyone rejects Ruby And that becomes the point of the episode almost a little bit. Because I mentioned this during the original recording. This is like the rejection sensitive dysphoria episode. This is like the abandonment issues episode. Because that is something that is very important to Ruby's character. It is almost her most defining trait is that she is desperate to know her birth mother, and the place where that comes from is from abandonment issues. She feels like she was abandoned because she was, and she wants to know why. She wants to know who that person was. She wants to know all the reasoning. Like, she wants to reconnect. It is this like empty void that she wants to fill, and I like that about Ruby. I feel like before this episode, it's not that it wasn't there, but it wasn't as clear to me where exactly that feeling of wanting to know who her birth mother was coming from. But now this episode makes it incredibly clear that it is abandonment issues, you know? And the reason why I said that is because this entire episode is abandonment issues. Because the way that the old lady works, the old lady who's at 73 yards. Okay, I'm gonna say this because I think it's important in order for you to understand what I'm about to say. I consider this episode to be more of a thematic episode. What do I mean by that? This is an episode that makes sense thematically more than it does make sense practically. What that means is that this is an episode where, and I'm going to tell you this right now, because I went on YouTube and I typed like 73 yards because I wanted to like watch clips for it, like the creepy clips of like what the reaction people had to the old lady. And I was like, oh, I want to find like a 40 seconds clip so I can send this to my friend. And I wrote that, and I saw like a bajillion videos come out of like, what did she say? What was the mystery of the old lady? What was she saying? Like, what is the explanation? It was like all of this like clickbaity ass YouTube videos, and I was like, bro, I hate the future, right? I was like, bro, I hate the algorithm. I hate all of this. And like, the reason why I say that is because that shit doesn't matter. It doesn't. I don't think it does. Like, now that I rewatched it, and I even said this in the original recording, I was like, I don't think that matters. Like I said, I don't know what she was saying. I don't know what the mystery was. And honestly, I don't care to know. And now that I rewatched that, I feel like double hard. I don't need to know, because I don't actually think that there is a practical, logical explanation that makes sense. I don't think there's like a mystery that you have to solve. I don't think that exists, because I don't think that that is the point of this episode. I said this in the original recording too. The point of this episode is to show you Ruby's fear of abandonment, and not just that, but just showing you what it's like for that to be part of your life, and for that to just be your whole reality, because that's the entirety of this episode. And so what I'm about to say is that the old lady who's 73 yards away, that is less of like a creepy thing for you to feel this horror and dread, because, and it is very successful at that, but it is more of a conduit for you to see the abandonment being just happening in front of you, in front of Ruby. So the old lady is more of a conduit for that to occur, rather than some kind of like mystery that we have to solve, like some kind of like, I don't know, big bad or something that needs to be fixed. That old lady doesn't need to be fixed. Or maybe she does, but in a different sense. And everything that I'm about to say now will make sense when you keep that in mind. So follow me on this. Because I was watching the episode again, and it became so clear to me the way everyone looked at Ruby when they talked to the old lady. Everyone, no matter what, did the same thing, which was approach the old lady, listen to her, looked at Ruby, and then run away screaming. But what was very interesting is that those people weren't afraid of Ruby, or at least they didn't look like they were afraid, because the next time we see them, we see an expression of disdain, hatred, of rejection, of I don't want anything to do with you. Like, when one of the like most shocking and like most impactful really shots of the episode was whenever Ruby's mom, I'm sorry, I don't know her name, whenever she ran away, and then Ruby chases her, and then we see her in like a taxi, and we see how in slow motion she looks at Ruby with this like facial expression of utter disgust. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, that is so fucked up. Because like we get to see how Ruby's begging her. She's begging her own mother to be like, please mom, listen to me, please don't leave me. And then we get to see that expression, and it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking because like it's very easy for me to imagine myself in that situation, and then that happens, and it's like, oh, like it feels like my world will shatter, you know? And for Ruby, it's like Ruby has like exactly like one person in her life, like maybe two, who actually give a shit about her and actually is on her side with things, you know? Like we get to see how her mom is on her side and her like grandma is on her side, and she doesn't really have many more people. We've seen her like play with her like transgender band like one time, but we haven't seen them since, so maybe they weren't that close. But like seeing that Ruby's mom, which is the closest person in her life, just have that expression, it's this thing of like, Jesus, that's fucked up. The same happens with Kate. Kate turns around and looks at her with this face of disgust, and Kate is just like, we're leaving. And it's like, please, Kate, listen to me. And it's like, don't even bother. The reason why that facial expression is so clear is because the episode really wants you to like register that. The episode really wants you to clock that this is incredibly important and incredibly fucked up, because it is. It is very important for you to see the facial expression of Ruby's mom as she leaves her behind. Now, let's talk about, okay, a lot of the episode makes a lot more sense on a thematic level whenever you keep in mind the reveal at the ending of the episode, which is the old lady was Ruby all along. It was an older Ruby who's like weirdly like time leaping backwards in order to prevent the bad timeline from happening. But the reason why this makes a lot more sense is because, okay, what does Ruby's mom say whenever she's on the phone? She says the following: she looks like what she looks like. And then she says, she looks like what she is. Very creepy things to hear. And also the way that that actress delivered those lines, it was like she was in a trance. So it was very creepy. But what does that mean? You know, what does the lines mean? It sounds just like creepy, vague shit. And it's like, why does that make any sense? Well, here's the thing. She looks like what she looks like. Okay? She looks like what she is. What does she look like? Okay, let's describe the old lady. The old lady is 73 yards away. She's always far away. She's distant. Not distant enough for you to not see her, but distant enough for you for you to never be able to reach her. That is part of her defining characteristics. She's never within reach. She's always at a distance where you're never going to be able to hear her. You're never going to be able to make up what she's saying or gesturing. And this is a very tiny detail that Ruby mentions when she's talking to Kate. And it actually doesn't really matter that much. It doesn't. Like, for the plot of the episode, this detail doesn't matter much, which is why I think that the fact that this was mentioned is very important. Ruby mentions to Kate that the old lady seems to have something like a perception filter, because no one actually realizes that she's there until she is pointed out to them. Until the moment that Ruby points out to someone that the old lady is there, nobody actually realizes that she's around. In fact, people will just like drive around her, but they were not gonna clock that that was something that happened. What to me that means is that, okay, describing the old lady again. She's always distant, far away. You can never reach her. You can never hear her. You can never make up what she's saying. You can never see how she looks like. And nobody ever notices that she's there. And also, that person is Ruby Sunday. You're understanding what I'm saying now. When you apply the logic that Ruby is the old lady, now that makes sense. The old lady is a representation of Ruby's loneliness. She's alone. Nobody notices that she's around. Nobody ever reaches her. She can never be reached. In fact, she is ignored most of the time. She's always alone. So whenever Ruby's mom says she looks like what she looks like, what does she look like? She looks alone. She looks like what she is. She is alone. Like it's something that's very kind of basic, but that is what she's saying is exactly what is the case. That old lady looks alone. She looks distant. She looks far away. She looks unreachable. And that is precisely what she is. That's also why everyone just looks at Ruby and leaves her whenever that happens, is because that is Ruby. And because they are, in like a weird way, they are compelled in order to play out that part, the idea that Ruby has to be alone. Now, as to why that happens, kind of doesn't matter, right? Because like I think people can get really hung up on that question of like, why do they get afraid? Why do they run away? And it's like, well, literally on like a practical sense, why do they get like mind control or whatever? It doesn't fucking matter, because it matters on a thematical sense. Because we are talking about Ruby's loneliness and Ruby's fear of abandonment in like a weird way. Like that old lady is like the representation of Ruby's worst fears. And then it all happens every time. Like that's something we see in this episode. Every time she's with anyone in this episode, she is rejected. She's left alone. Like the doctor leaves her alone. He doesn't reject her, but she is left alone. She goes to the inn, and the people at the inn make fun of her, and they reject her. And then the lady at the inn just kicks her out. She goes home. Her mom kicks her out. Her grandma probably didn't put much of a fight, and like also just kicked her out. Kate Levery Stewart abandons her, and then everyone in her relationships abandon her because she has a relationship with some guy who's like, oh yeah, like we want to talk about like moving out, but you never want to do that. And it's because like Ruby doesn't want to leave the old woman behind or risk leaving the old woman behind, which is interesting because it's like, well, why is that connection there? And the connection is there because like, well, Ruby's holding on to herself, right? Like Ruby is holding on to her own life because that is her. And this is when we go into like the second half of the episode where, so we have a scene where she's with another, some other guy in a relationship. And this guy is talking about like how Ruby always seems distant. And you're watching that the first time and you might think to yourself like, well, she's always distracted by the fact that there's like a creepy old lady always in the background. And it's like, yeah, sure, that could be distracting. But that's not that's not the case, actually. I don't think that's what matters here. What matters here is the fact that she's alone. Something that happens whenever you are abandoned so much, when you have this like such like fear of you being left alone, is that the solution in order to not be abandoned is to never get close to anyone. So what happens is Ruby never gets close to people anymore. And we get to see that in the relationship she's forming. Like she's dating guys and all of these guys are telling her, Ruby, you're not like applying yourself to the relationship. Like we want to have this thing. We want to like move in together to like a different country, or like Ruby, it always seems like you're somewhere else. You're not paying attention to me. And as he's explaining that, Ruby is not paying attention to him. And it's this thing where like, why is that the case? Well, it's because Ruby's afraid of getting close to anyone. Because the moment she gets close to anyone, she's going to feel like they're going to leave her. Because everyone in her life has left her because of the old lady. However, the old lady is herself. And this is something that's very interesting because like earlier in the episode, it was less her fault. But later in the episode, it became her fault. The fact that she was alone. Because she's just afraid of getting close to people, so she's not even trying anymore. And we get to see that during that entire like saga with like the actual politician. Okay, I am recording an extra audio to include inside of the already previously recorded audio that I recorded last night. I am editing it as I'm listening to myself talk about it. I feel like I figure an extra thing out, which this is going to be quick. But I just mentioned how Ruby sees the old lady, and the old lady herself is Ruby, and it's like a representation of her fear. Here's what's up. I don't think the old lady is a representation of Ruby's fear of being abandoned. I think it specifically is a representation of her own fear of growing up alone, being abandoned, which is an interesting distinction. Because, like, let's assume that what the circle did, and again, this is all assumption, you know, you don't have to ever believe anything I say, but let's assume that the circle that they stepped on at the beginning of the episode, let's say that the circle makes your worst fear a reality that you have to interact with. And if Ruby's worst fear would be to be old and alone after everyone has left you behind, then yeah, that would be it. That would be exactly what the episode was. Ruby saw herself. The entire episode, Ruby sees herself as an old lady who is alone. And even if she doesn't fully understand what that is, what happens is that it gives her this feeling of dread, and it makes it so everyone actually does leave her alone. And the reason why this makes sense to me is because I just mentioned in the earlier recording that Ruby actually at first is not really her fault that she's being abandoned by everybody, but eventually it does become her fault because Ruby eventually just gives up. She just gives up on the idea of being with people because she's completely just accepted that everyone who she gets close to is just going to abandon her anyway. So at that point, her response is to just not get close to people at all. And that's why she dedicates fully to this mission. She just stops talking to people. She doesn't care about anything anymore. She doesn't have relationships. And even that lady, Marty, she just kind of left her to just suffer by herself until eventually she finally did something about it. But like, she kind of just didn't care enough to like get in between that happening. And it's the thing of like Ruby at a certain point just stops caring about getting close to people because of her fear of abandonment being so fucking high. So if Ruby's worst fear is to be an old woman who's just alone, then well, congratulations, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what that is. And the thing is that, we don't just get to see people abandoning Ruby. We get to see her entire life as someone who is constantly abandoned and what that turns you into. And then how then that becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sorry, my neighbors just started screaming at each other, and you could actually hear that, so I muted the microphone, and now it's been a couple minutes, and I forgot what I was saying. The old lady is a representation of not just being alone, but the representation of growing up alone, and what that does to you, and that is exactly what we see in this episode. And then the old lady, like, that is the connection that Ruby has with her old self, her fear of being that old lady. Is that entire thing throughout the episode, but eventually she accepts the old lady because she grows to become that old lady. So that's very interesting to me. I really like that. I'm just gonna stop here, and then we'll just go back to the normal video where I'm just gonna continue talking about something that I recorded last night. Fuck my life. And that's what's interesting about that, is that like I can see how someone might watch this episode and they might think that like, oh, that whole like bit taking down that politician and saving the world, like that was like the meat of the episode, you know, like that was like, oh, this is like the triumphant part. This is what it was all for. And Ruby even has that moment where she was like, is this it? Is this why you're here? But I'm watching that, and the only thing that to me matters about that is the fact that it shows you how alone Ruby is. Because Ruby has no attachments to anyone. So much so that she instantly goes like, yep, I'm dedicating my entire life to this mission. I am jumping in. I am throwing in all my money. It's like, yeah, I'll do everything in order to like infiltrate into this political party and then wait for the moment where I can fucking take this guy down. She doesn't care about anything else. She has no aspirations, no ambitions, no relationships, no one that looks after her or she can look after either. She has no attachments to anyone, no connections anymore. So it's incredibly easy for her to just throw her entire life into essentially work And this is something that you see in real life people do. It's this idea of like, I don't have anything or anyone else, so I am just going to distract myself with just being efficient. So she's here to be efficient. She's here to save the world or whatever. That's her mission. But there's no humanity to anything that she's doing anymore. She's just doing it because she feels like she has to. That entire like saga where she's going through this political party infiltration and eventually saving the world, like all of that happens and it's kind of cool. But all I can think about is how sad of a life Ruby is living. And then after it was over, and I just edited the video, you can see my reaction. Like, whenever the fucking, I forgot his name, like Rabbit App, whatever, this asshole dude, like, whenever he goes, he runs away screaming because of the old lady. In my reaction, I think about, I'm saying like out loud, okay, now what? Because I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, sure, we fixed that, but I am not worried about that. I am worried about what's going to happen to Ruby Sunday, because that is the episode. The old lady being Ruby herself. The old lady is alone. She was always alone. And she says so on her deathbed. And she's like, don't worry, everyone always left me, you know? So she's always alone and distant. And that's how Ruby sees herself throughout her entire life. Because like it's the idea that she only has herself. What's interesting is how whenever you ask anyone about why they run away from the old lady, they reply, ask her, which is really interesting. And I was thinking about why that might be. And I have like a couple reasons. I'm going to go from least likely to most likely in my head. But least likely, I'm thinking like, okay, ask her. It might refer to ask Ruby. So it might be Ruby seeing herself as like she is the problem, she's a fuck up, you know, like, okay, like people always leave me behind, people always run away from me, people always abandon me, so there must be something wrong with me. So whenever they say ask her, it's the idea of like, oh, why do you run away? Ask Ruby Sunday why she is the way that she is, you know? That might be it. The other one that I was thinking about is that Ruby actually being bad at maintaining relationships because she's running away from them, but that is more of a second half of the episode thing. And pretty sure earlier in the beginning of the episode, the guy at the end, he was saying ask her. So I don't think that applies because Ruby hadn't been like super distant at that moment yet. However, I think what makes the most sense as the reason why everyone says ask her, is because they're referring to Ruby's mom, her birth mom, her real mom, that we have no knowledge who that is and why she left Ruby. That makes a lot of sense to me because Ruby Sunday's entire character is built around that complex of who is my mom and why did she abandon me? And she asked this question. She always asks this question. That is the number one question. Like for the Doctor is like Doctor Who. For Ruby is like, why did my mom leave me? So whenever you ask anyone, like, and they reply, ask her, they're saying, ask Ruby's mom why she did that. Because that's what Ruby wants to know most of all. And that is the origin of this complex. That is the origin of this worry, this fear, this anxiety that Ruby has. And that is really just the entire driving force behind this episode. Is Ruby's fear of being abandoned. So now, whenever anyone says ask her, to me that reads that everyone is saying the exact same thing that Ruby's wondering. Why did you leave her? Well, ask her. She must know. She's the one that did it first. Same reason. And that's so interesting because like this entire episode kind of recontextualizes itself after you watch it once. Because the old lady was incredibly creepy at first, but now rewatching it, you sitting there thinking about like, this is really sad. And also the old lady becomes kind of this weird, it becomes this kind of like weird symbol of like something good, which is exactly how Ruby sees it. And that's interesting because that's what it is. It's herself. It is kind of this idea of everyone else in the world is going to let me down. So the only person I can hold on to is myself. That is the only person who's a constant. That is the only person I can run away from. Even though that person is always concerned about being distant, never perceived, never heard, never open to anyone, that person is always there. So guess what? I guess this is what I got. So on a rewatch, this episode is so cool because I'm sitting there looking at the old lady and seeing all the fucked up shit around us, and I'm sitting there thinking like, the old lady's our only friend in all this fucked up world. The old lady's our only friend because that is Ruby's only friend, and that's why it's so fucking sad. It's such a sad fucking episode. Oh, speaking about Ruby's only friend, there was something that I'm not sure if it's anything, but when I was watching it, I saw whenever Ruby takes down Roger up Williams, something like that, because of the old lady 73 yards in the football field or whatever. There's this other girl, Marty, who was abused. She looks at the whole situation with the old lady and Roger Apps happening, and she starts cheering, she starts laughing at the same time as Ruby is. And that's something that kind of stood out to me. And I was thinking about like why that was. And I was looking at it and I was like, that is the only instance in this episode where anyone acknowledges the old lady and sees it as a good thing. And it's like, of course, if she had gotten closer, then maybe that would have been a situation of like, well, she would have just gonna get scared from Ruby and run away too and reject her. But it was a weird instance where Ruby and this other girl, Marty, they're both looking at the old lady and they're cheering and they're laughing and they're happy. And keeping in mind that the old lady is Ruby herself, I'm looking at that thinking about like, oh, Ruby made a friend, you know? Like that's kind of weirdly what that felt like to me. However, that wasn't really fully explored in any way, so I don't think that's anything, but that's just something I saw and stood out to me and I thought it was kind of cool. Okay, something else. At the very end, I was wondering why the whole thing with Mad Jack and all this like messages in the circle. And something the doctor says is like, oh, this is like fairy shit. They are so delicate. Charms and spells and hopes and dreams. In here at the end of the line. And I'm looking at that thinking about how that could be just like the mystery of like, oh, why were those scrolls there? Who's Mad Jack? And I'm sitting there thinking about like, oh, maybe that is a situation of we actually do get to hear like a small message from the old lady. The Ruby that we just saw live through her entire life. The reason why there is a Mad Jack scroll there is because of her. The reason why there is all those messages of recent priest, old friend, is from her. And it's might not be like a physical version of them. It might be something that is just, again, it's a fair circle and it's also fantasy and it's fiction. Like it can be anything. You can give any dumb reasoning you want, but it could just be from the old lady herself, which is the other version of Ruby, who is just kind of saluting the life that she never got to live. Now she is. And I think that's something that's kind of beautiful. I do like that. I feel like I had something else I wanted to say, but I just forgot about it. So I guess I'm not gonna. I feel like I said enough though. I recorded like an extra 30 minutes of bullshit, so I'm sorry about that. I guess the final two things is that one, I noticed that Ruby's theme was playing when she was the old lady in the bed. I really like that, and I feel like it's cool that I can recognize Ruby's theme because I feel like it's very recognizable. It is the theme that she was playing on the piano in Devil's Court, which is the song for like the sad lesbians or whatever. So that's cool. It's cool that I recognize that theme, and I like having a recognizable character theme. I like that. And the other thing that I didn't mention at all during the original recording in the discussion portion is because this episode was so fucking charged emotionally that I didn't have the chance to do it. But the original evil old lady, the Susan Twist, she appeared in the episode early on, and she's actually addressed as being a character that you've seen multiple times. Like Ruby says like, oh, have I seen you before? No, that was a different time. Never mind. And she just kind of moves on from that. But that is a direct address of the fact that this is a character that we've seen multiple times, or at least an actress who have we seen multiple times portraying different characters. And while before that was just like a fun thing that you can notice if you're paying close attention, now it is something that is straight up being told to you by the characters in the text. So now that is the case, that means that there is no fucking way that that is not something incredibly relevant. Or it could be a case... No, I think it has to be incredibly relevant. It's not only deliberate, because I was sure it was deliberate, but what I wasn't sure about it was whether or not it was just like a fun gag that they were doing behind the scenes, or if it's something that actually matters. I am heavily leaning into the fact that this actually matters. This old lady, Susan Twist, she fucking matters. I have no way to know in which way, but I'm positive. So yeah, anyway, that's it for this video. I recorded just like an extra 40 minutes. What the fuck am I doing? I have to edit this again now. Oh my god. Okay. Thank you so much, you guys, for tuning in for this. See you guys later. Bye. Alright everyone, thank you so much for watching. This was a reaction to Doctor Who. It was draining. Go to my Patreon, check out my Patreon if you want to support me and watch early episode reactions as well as full reactions. Thanks a lot. See you then. Bye.